The last time many of us thought about our nation's big land-based nuclear missiles was probably during the Cold War. But today, there are nearly 450 of these giant Minuteman IIIs, as they're called, tucked away in underground silos, ready to launch on the president's command. They're part of a so-called nuclear triad that includes submarines and bombers. But it's the land-based leg of the triad that's been getting all the attention lately, and it's not the kind of attention the top brass wants. The entire Air Force chain of command of a missile base responsible for 1/3 of our land-based missiles was removed a few weeks ago because of a scandal involving drugs and cheating on tests. We wanted to know what was going on. Why so much turmoil in the Missile Corps? Who's minding the nukes? And where are these weapons of mass destruction?
150 above 80 knots. Roger.
Flying over the plains of Wyoming in an old Huey helicopter, we came upon a small fenced-in lot. It didn't look like much.
All right, so that's it right there.
Air Force Colonel Carl Jones told us that underneath the concrete near that white pole, there's a Minuteman III missile. It's one of the deadliest and most powerful weapons on the planet.
So is that particular missile armed right now with a nuclear warhead?
It is.
The warhead on each of these land-based missiles is 20 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima and could kill millions if dropped on a major city. The Air Force still keeps nearly all 450 of them on constant alert, ready to go. We thought the missiles would be hidden away on some vast tract of federal land.
My goodness, is this a farm right here?
It is.
We were surprised the missiles were close to rural communities. We saw bales of hay and herds of grazing cattle.
It's a safe weapon. I mean, it's not gonna do anything here on the ground.
If by accident or a deliberate act, one of those missiles was launched, is there a way to disarm it or bring it back?
We can only launch with direction from the President of the United States. Now, once that missile is gone, there's no way to recall it or disarm the warhead that's on the missile. You know, once they're gone, they're gone.
The missiles are spread out over a wide area surrounding 3 Air Force bases in 5 different states. A web of underground, hardened and pressurized cables connect the missiles to buildings like this, where the missiles are monitored remotely miles away in capsules 70 feet underground. The control rooms hang on shock absorbers within a protective shell of concrete and steel. The system was designed in another era, the 1960s, to survive a nuclear blast. We went down by elevator and were escorted to a door that weighs 8 tons.
Ma'am, sir, I would like to welcome you to...
We were allowed to go inside, provided we use an old Air Force camera and let security officials vet this footage. The so-called missileers who watch over and control the missiles work in teams of 2 on 24-hour shifts known as alerts. They have everything down here they need to survive. We expected to find pot-bellied veterans at the controls. Instead, we found Chaz Demarath, who's 25, just 3 years out of the Air Force Academy, and his deputy, Dana Myers, 23. This was only her 5th time on duty. When they started this 24-hour shift, they took custody of 10 nuclear weapons.
So I guess I have to ask you the inevitable question. Where is the button?
Where's the big button?
Yeah.
Ma'am, there is no button.
There's no button?
There's no button.
There are 3 switches and a key, which is kept in this strong box with 2 locks on it. Demarath has one combination, Myers has the other. It's one of many layers of safeguards built into the system.
Even though we trust each other, we don't trust each other.
We thought the work would be tedious, just waiting for something that'll probably never happen to happen. But from nearly the moment we asked the question,
Is this just boring beyond belief?
It is never boring because we have so many actions we do every day.
alarms started beeping, and the phones kept ringing.
Ma'am, I need to ask all of you to remove yourselves from the capsule at this point.
So is there anything wrong?
There's nothing wrong at this point.
We were politely asked to leave at least 8 times. so they could decode messages or deal with other classified information. The officers may be young,
That, if you can imagine that as being your computer is.
but the equipment is ancient. This, for example, is one of the computers that would receive a launch order from the president. It uses floppy disks, the really old, big ones. Before you got down here, you probably had never seen one of them.
I've never seen one until I got down in missiles.
The reason the Air Force allowed us to visit the missile fields surrounding Warren Air Force Base is because it wanted to counter all the bad press it's been getting lately at the two other bases that also guard our land-based missiles. Last year, 17 missileers at Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota were removed from duty after performing poorly on an inspection. At Malmstrom Air Force Base in Montana, 3 missileers are under investigation for drug possession, and 91 have been implicated in a scandal involving cheating on routine tests.
I am flying back to...
Major General Jack Weinstein took control of all 3 nuclear bases in December with a mandate to find out what ails the Missile Corps and fix it. Let me ask you a question. Whether there's, I guess you'd call it an identity crisis with the mission as a whole. You have these nuclear weapons that no one believes we'll ever use. So do you find that that's an issue, that the question of what's the mission?
No, because we use these weapons every single day protecting our nation. Deterrence has a value. It has a value for our nation. It has a value for our allies.
General Weinstein commands a force of 9,600, including maintenance technicians who keep the missiles in working order, security forces that guard the weapons and provide a heavily armed escort anytime the warheads are being moved, and about 500 missileers who man 45 control centers round the clock. The vast majority, the general says, have not cheated on tests.
We're talking about 1% of the 9,600 people that work for me that did violate our core values.
But when you say 1%, it's not 1% of the missileers. It's, right? You're talking about everybody.
Right.
It's a much larger percent of the missileers.
Right. It's about 20% of the missileers.
Well, that's huge.
It is huge, and that's why we've taken accountability for those people.
General Weinstein also removed the directors of operation.
On General Weinstein's recommendation, the Air Force brass announced that the Montana-based commander would resign and that 9 other officers under him would be removed. Weinstein told us investigators found no evidence of cheating at the 2 other missile bases. But that's not what our reporting found. You know, it's interesting because we spoke to a lot of former missileers, and they just say cheating goes on everywhere. And it's been going on for quite a long time.
What we did was we look at the evidence. Whenever we saw a cell phone, whether it was a text message or an email, we investigated that.
One of the people who told us about this cheating being endemic was an instructor at this base and left last year.
Well, I will tell you that as a commander, if I have any indication that people aren't following our core values, I immediately attack the problem. And we have not seen this problem at the other 2 bases.
The former missileers told us that the Missile Corps has long been treated like the stepchild of the Air Force. Pilots get all the glory. Missileers have fewer chances for advancement.
We're going to review the monthly lesson plan, and then we're going to take a test.
It's said that the reason for the cheating is a culture of perfection, where missileers have felt they had to get 100% on the tests they take 3 times a month or face no chance of promotion. We spoke to a group of current missileers at Warren Air Force Base, including 26-year-old Daniel Sharp from Tennessee. Why did people feel they had to score 100%?
When I first came here, leadership that was in place told me that the minimum passing score for my test was a 90%. But if I was making 90s, I was a D student, and I would be treated that way.
But you actually were here under that 100% pressure yourself.
I was.
Yeah, and you felt the pressure, and that caused stress, I'm sure of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it also caused a great deal of studying and a great deal of proficiency. So.
No one cheated because they had to, they didn't know the material. They cheated in order to get 100.
Is that gone?
That's gone.
So what replaces that?
Well, right now, it's pass-fail. As long as they get, above a 90, which is the standard.
Wait, pass, it's still pass, you fail at 90?
It's still at 90 right now.
Wow. How is that improving things?
When you take away the pressure of getting 100 on a test, you have people focus on what they need to know. I think it changes things.
It's one of a number of things the general's doing to boost morale, which by most accounts has been low for a long time, even at the top. Last year, Weinstein's predecessor, Major General Michael Carey, was relieved of command for drunken and inappropriate behavior during an official trip to Moscow. According to an inspector general's report, Carey complained that his troops had the worst morale of any airman in the Air Force. How many of you chose to be a missileer as your first choice for a military career? 2 of you. Truth be told, the vast majority don't choose this job. This group was impressive. They majored in physics, engineering, and English, and many are working on their advanced degrees. We've obviously heard a lot about the morale problems, so I wonder what the morale problems come from.
Well, it fluctuates, and there are times where it just becomes a grind because you're doing so much in a short period of time a lot of times, and you just have to adapt and work with the schedule you're given.
So it can be more than 24 hours?
Of course, weather does impact how long we might be downstairs. If we have poor weather, especially during the winter, we do get that a lot in these northern bases. You might be down there for 48 hours at a time or possibly 72.
Anybody been down for 72? No, 48?
42, yes.
Yeah, 48, a lot of you. They told us they feel things are improving, and they also assured us there are many safeguards built into the systems of the Launch Control Centers, or LCCs, to prevent an unauthorized launch.
Launch key inserted. Inserted.
Are any of you partners?
Yes, ma'am.
You're partners. Okay, just for the sake of this discussion, let's say both of you go bonkers, and you get the key out and you switch it on. Will it go off?
No, ma'am.
No.
It won't go off.
No.
Why not?
Because there are enable codes that we need in order to get the missile ready for launching.
Only the President of the United States could authorize the launch of nuclear weapons.
Mm-hmm.
And one capsule by themselves can't do it alone.
Right.
And you would have to receive the codes to put them in? You don't have them when you go into the LCC?
No, ma'am.
No.
Okay. Well, that's reassuring. An important part of their job is monitoring the condition of the missiles. If they get a signal that something's wrong, they ask for a maintenance crew to fix it. Oh, wow. The maintenance crews train on this missile that is virtually identical to the real thing, minus the rocket fuel and warhead. The systems are so complex, the technicians work off detailed checklists.
Torque-to-mouth separation all the way around. 2.
They're constantly shouting 2, 2,
2.
because the rules require there always be 2 people keeping an eye on one another when they work on a nuclear missile.
2.
The idea is to ensure safety and prevent sabotage.
2.
Sometimes these Minutemen IIIs have to be removed from their silos for repairs or for random test launches, without the warhead, of course, to make sure the missiles still work. These missiles were designed and built during the Cold War, when there was always the fear of a nuclear attack from the Soviet Union. But the second in command of all U.S. nuclear forces said recently that he's more concerned about an accident or human error than a Russian attack. When we come back, we'll tell you about some mishaps in the past that nearly led to accidental nuclear detonations on U.S. soil. For more than 50 years, land-based nuclear missiles and long-range bombers have played a key role in America's strategy to deter other nations from using their nuclear weapons against us. But the age of the equipment is a problem, and human error is always a concern. Small mistakes, like a dropped socket, can mean the difference between routine maintenance and a major accident. We were not aware until we started researching this story how many close calls there have been involving nuclear weapons. Fires, plane crashes, fuel explosions, even a bomb that was accidentally dropped on U.S. soil. The seriousness of many of these incidents was not disclosed at the time, but based on witness accounts and declassified government documents, we have a much better understanding today of how close we have come to a nuclear disaster.
We came close on numerous occasions during the Cold War to having our own weapons detonate accidentally on American soil.
Eric Schlosser spent 6 years investigating nuclear weapons mishaps during the Cold War. His book, Command and Control, describes a number of hair-raising incidents, like a rocket fuel explosion in 1980 in Damascus, Arkansas, that forced the evacuation of people living near a Titan II missile complex.
Someone dropped a socket in the silo, and the socket fell about 70 feet, pierced the missile, caused a fuel leak, and then there was a huge explosion.
If that exploded, how come you say there was no detonation?
They put safety mechanisms in the warheads to make sure they only detonate over the target where they're supposed to, and that's a testament to the engineering skill of the warhead designers and to good luck.
Schlosser says that's not the only time we were lucky. A few days after John Kennedy's inauguration in 1961, an Air Force B-52 like this one had mechanical problems and accidentally dropped a nuclear bomb over Goldsboro, North Carolina.
When it hit the ground, the firing signal was sent, but one safety switch prevented a full-scale detonation of a powerful hydrogen bomb in North Carolina.
I'm kind of shocked because I didn't hear the story.
Yeah.
Ever, did I? Until you revealed it? Was that made public?
There was a real effort throughout the Cold War to deny that there was any possibility that a nuclear weapon could detonate by accident.
Today's Minuteman III missiles use rocket fuel that's more stable and less likely to explode. And they've upgraded some key components, too, like the guidance systems that direct the missiles toward their target.
The nuclear weapons themselves, the warhead, the bombs, are much safer than they were 30 years ago. There's no question about that. But the infrastructure, the equipment, what carries those weapons?
The Minuteman itself goes back
to the Nixon administration.
The Nixon administration.
Look at it this way. If you got a beautiful sports car from the 1960s, it would drive really fast and it would be fun to drive.
Right.
But a modern car is going to have so many more safety mechanisms that are so much more sophisticated. And the architecture, the command and control architecture, is complicated and aging.
How would you evaluate the risk of an accident happening? Human error kind of thing.
The probability is as close to zero as you can get.